came to this ministry on the 20th of September of last year. When I came onto this compound, I came by myself. I came with a piece of paper signed by the Governor General, and I came into this building. I did not have a secretary. I did not have any assistants. I did not have any driver. I came on this compound by myself. And I worked in the office of the minister by myself, without a secretary. And I want to begin this morning by saying thank you to Mr. Cambridge on my first day. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. On that first day I came here, he welcomed me. And he gave me the first orientation. And every day that I arrive, he gives me a little orientation. In my office, the first person I met was Mrs. Fraser, the janitress, and she welcomed me. She made tea for me, and she helped me to understand the environment in which I had come to work. And her kindness, her generosity, is what helped me and encouraged me to come to my office every day. Amen. You could not imagine the journey that I have had over these 4 months. But I begin with them because oftentimes when we talk about organization, we start from the top. But I can tell you from my experience in this ministry, my orientation began with Mr. Cambridge, and this is before I saw the PS now. And it began with Mrs. Fraser. And that is an illustration of what the parliamentary secretary spoke about teamwork. Because the most significant welcome to me, and I'm speaking my heart today, came from the security, and it came from the janitorial staff. And as I got my orientation and I started to move around this ministry, the director took me to every office in this building. And then I was eventually introduced to the other portion of this ministry. And I went to the northern compound. The parliamentary secretary went there before me. And then I saw a tale of two cities on one compound in one ministry. As I walked the northern compound, bathrooms with no doors. I spent 2 hours and I listened to staff members, and I can call their names. And I sat for 2 hours and I took notes. And I went into every single room as I had done here. And I saw machinery that's not working. And then I heard the human infrastructure. Listen to the people, many of whom working in this ministry for 20 years and have never been promoted. Janitress working in the mechanic shop, supervising in the mechanic shop, can do every single thing in the mechanic shop and is still a janitress today. I listen to the janitorial staff cleaning our offices and not provided gloves, sanitary material, disinfectant material. And then I listen to the concerns of the artisans, all of the skilled people who have to go out and repair the offices of other ministries without vehicles, without tools, without uniform. And then I recognize that before I can talk about the infrastructure, that is the mission of the ministry, I have to first talk about the human infrastructure. I have to talk about the people who are to carry out the design. And then when I also look at where the architects are working, and I say to myself, if I had a private practice, I wouldn't have architects and engineers and quality surveyors working in those environments. And I represent private developers, Brickell, Playtech, and we are renting from them. And if they could build offices for us to occupy, and their offices are better situated, physical plant is in there. And then when I look at this ministry, why are we operating in these conditions? I don't understand it. I do not understand it. So before I get to the speech, I just want to say, we got to get the human side right. And then I went to Grand Bahama, spent 2 days in Grand Bahama, and I met with the staff, and I sat there for an hour and a half, and I heard from the architects, from the engineers, from the janitorial, from the various craftspersons, and the same complaints I heard on the northern compound, I heard in Grand Bahama. The same complaints. Then I went to Abaco and spent 3 days in Abaco. And I will never forget. This is why, to do the job that I am mandated to do, I have to listen, understand, and take it to my colleagues. I took it to cabinet. And I said I went to Abaco. And if we're talking about who we are, the Ministry of Works, I heard your colleagues, my colleagues, go through a hurricane, lost family members in that hurricane, and they came to work in the middle of the hurricane, some of whom lost their jobs, and some of whom are homeless. You hear me? Homeless. And every single day they are going out into the community of Abaco representing the Ministry of Works. As I told the cabinet, when Mr. Joshua Smith was telling me the experience, he said, Minister, and he couldn't continue. He broke down and he cried. Colleagues, when we have leadership, we are entrusted. We are entrusted with the lives, the careers, the welfare of the people we lead. I could never serve Abaco had I not sat in that meeting and heard from every single member, and I was moved. It gave me a sense of urgency. And the Undersecretary Pratrol, she will tell you that every single week I ask her, have we addressed the concerns of the janitress, the carpenters, the masons, the welders, all of our colleagues on the northern compound in Abaco and in Grand Bahama. You have prepared me for this time because you have made me recognize that serving the country, I have to serve you so that you will be inspired to do the critical work that needs to be done for the development of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. So with that introduction, I am going to go into the prepared remarks that have been The Ministry of Works is charged with a vital public function. It is the entity that represents the largest design, architectural design, engineering design, quantity surveying, capacity, building inspectorate, and I'm going to speak to each of these, and also those skilled craftspersons who must prepare the built environment, especially the public built environment of our country. In the design, as I got to know and I spoke with the director and the various leaders of this ministry, I want to say that if we were a private sector, the intellectual work of this ministry would be better protected, better articulated. Because when I gave my first speech in Parliament, I wanted to recognize some of our colleagues, because some of the work that's being done by this ministry is what I call cutting edge work. You know, we talk a lot about the problems, but we seldom talk about the accomplishments. The accomplishments. And some of these accomplishments, when you go to the Southern Recreation Ground and you see what is there, combining the history of majority rule and our struggle for political independence and universal suffrage for the women of this country, you will see that Luthera, it's Luthera right born here, and the interdisciplinary team that she worked with. Anywhere I go in the Caribbean, I would recommend that if we were to talk about public space, what's happening there at the Southern Recreation Ground is an excellent template. That's something for us to brag about. An excellent template. Then when we go to Rugged Island, as we will be going in another several weeks, I want to recognize Tremaine Thompson and Kirk Bullard, because they have designed something in Rugged Island that shows that in any developing country, the Bahamas is at the cutting edge of building the kind of multifunctional public facility that can also serve as a shelter in the middle of the storm, and that it is beautifully crafted, designed, and it is built with resilience for the future hurricanes that will come. I also want to recognize our Deputy Director of Works, Mr. Robert Mousses, because I went to Abaco. You know, these are our colleagues. I want to recognize them. I went to Abaco and I saw the little Abaco Bridge designed with a foundation on both sides of a creek, with the bridge over the creek, and that has enabled the creek, the road that was running through the creek, to be removed and the creek to start flowing again. And I understand people going there on the side of the bridge fishing. Some people say in fact, the contractors say they even catch crawfish right from the side of the bridge. And we see the pedestrian crossing, in other words, it's designed with the idea that we must be environmentally sensitive, that our built environment must cohere and be harmonized with the natural environment of our country. Similarly, Mr. Moses' design at Smith Point, the seawall. I mean, what a beautiful structure. It doesn't only look strong against the hurricane, but it is also beautiful. And we see it's a place where people hang out. It's like the fish fry. It brings the community together, right? And then I want to say, Anton Taylor, I went to Elbow Key in the Abacos and saw the seawall and the dune restoration. In other words, colleagues, some fantastic things are happening. And we're seeing these colleagues all the time. And if they were in the private sector, they'll be on television, they'll be all over social media. And what they have designed is original. It is what we call intellectual product. Then I know we have some other young talented Bahamians. Stefan knows. Stefan knows what have designed the London Creek Bridge, and he also did a fabulous job on the Little Abaco Bridge. I mean, when I saw how well crafted, you would say, oh, well, that must be a foreign company. No, this local talent and a young Bahamian. Similarly, I've had the occasion now to meet on a number of occasions Lambert Knowles, right, who came right out of this ministry and also presented to me, I think it was the Stanyard Creek. It was the Stanyard Creek Bridge. And also, colleagues, you will, when you see this design of the glass window bridge for Eleuthera, it will turn this marvelous work of nature into a destination in and of itself. And then I had the occasion in Parliament to recognize Craig Delancey. Is Craig here? Where's Craig? Yeah. Craig, with a number of colleagues from this ministry and from the private sector, went into Abaco and into Grand Bahama after Hurricane Dorian. And this interdisciplinary team did a survey, and they found that many of the buildings that had been destroyed could have survived had there been proper compliance with the building code. Now, colleagues, this report, which was compiled by Mr. Delancey, is something that all of us have to read, because what it says is that whatever went down in the past can't happen again. And this is why our building inspectorate has to be strengthened. It has to also be better insulated from undue influence. You know, this talk this morning is real talk. Because when I met with building control, they said, Minister, we want to get out of this building. I said, why? They said, well, too many people in the building are coming into building control to influence us with their private work. Now, I don't know, public officers are supposed to be doing private work. So I probably wasn't supposed to hear that. But colleagues, I am asking that, as I will end by asking you to make a commitment this morning, right? Mr. Delancey, thank you for the work that you and your colleagues, architects, engineers, quantity surveyors and others, building control colleagues would have done in providing that report. And then for the northern compound, I want to thank you because